Welcome to Cultural Connections Lab. I'm your host, Dr. Kelly Forbes. We are here to talk with educational professionals around the world to impact and influence the education system as we focus on cultural connections and the education of multilingual, diverse students. We're excited to have you join us today, and we sincerely hope that you enjoy the show. I'm just so excited to be with you. So this is a lot of fun to get to be with. For the listeners that don't know, this is a friend of mine, a good colleague in the field of bilingual and multilingual education, coordinator for dual language education currently in Western Heights, and just recently nominated and gained the votes to be the Oklahoma Association for Bilingual Education's new president-elect for the next 3 years. This is Mr. Señor Ronald Sandoval de Guatemala, pero representando Oklahoma, Valle, and Western Heights right now. Thanks for being a guest on Cultural Connections Lab today.
Thank you, Kelly. You know, it's been a day for me, you know, full of surprises. You know, I was not expecting to be in the first, you know, to have the presentation for OAVE. And after that, you know, to have this big event and the honor, you know, to be nominated for be the president and now, you know, to feel like I'm the president now.
Yes.
I was selected for that. And it's just an honor, and I think, you know, it's a privilege to be here, you know, and things happen for a reason. Never crossed my mind, you know, to live in Oklahoma before. You know, I was crossing the state many times that I drove from between Illinois and Texas, you know, and now I'm here, and really, you know, it's the place to be.
Well, I'm just really glad that you're here. I'm thankful that you are in Oklahoma, and I'm really thankful that you're here at OAVE specifically. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure that Cultural Connections Lab could be used as a space to not only discuss culture and the connections and the role that plays in our lives, but also just to bring some awareness to the association. And so it's really exciting for me. I've been part of OAVE for so long, and I just love this association. But from my historical perspective, this will be the very first time that we have a trilingual person, truly a multilingual, not just bilingual like myself, but a multilingual president-elect right now. And so I'm excited. Let our listeners, what languages do you speak?
Well, I speak
English.
Spanish, of course. It's my native language, you know. Como decimos nosotros, el lenguaje de mamá.
Yeah.
English, of course, and I speak Quiché, which is one of the native tongues, one of the native languages, you know, we speak in my country, Guatemala.
Yeah.
So
that's exciting. What do you think? What do you think this is kind of gonna be like? You know, I mean, it's just really exciting because you've been. First of all, you can probably, you know, say a little bit about yourself if you wanted to, because you've traveled, from what you've told me, internationally as a teacher, as a leader, and you've been a principal, you've been the teacher in dual language programs, created dual language programs, 20 plus years of experience in the field of bilingual and multilingual education, and now really taking on a role within the state of Oklahoma that can bring a lot of awareness, allyship, and advocacy.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, I had the privilege and the honor, you know, and the blessing, you know, to be growing up in a family that really have the love for education, and more than anything, you know, to value, you know, every single person as they are. You know, my dad, you know, coming from the background, you know, being Spaniard, you know, and all the family and all that, you know, and my mom being a native, you know, from Guatemala and have some roots, you know, from that area of, you know, in the world. And you know, we started from living and growing up in a country where my childhood was, you know, nothing that I can regret. You know, it was a dream, you know, living that childhood with my parents, growing up in a farm, you know, growing up in a coffee plantation because of my dad's job, and having everything, you know, that you can imagine living in between the mountains, getting up early, picking up the eggs, in the morning to make sure the grandma can make the breakfast before we go, to school and things like that, coming back and do some chores, and the house is smelling like coffee every single day, all the time. And after that, going to a point where being a teenager and leave the war in my country, and growing up in that, leaving the place that we call home and everything that we know because of the war, and the internal war, the civil war that occurred, and then being from that peaceful time in a childhood and then moving into a situation where I always told, my students, especially when I was working at the high school, you guys, you don't know what you have, For me, going to the high school with the group of friends, that we were in the neighborhood, that we were about 27, 28 friends, in the neighborhood, that we walked together to school because, we were poor. We had no money for buses. We had to work, and we had to work in between, shortcuts, to avoid, longer time, to get to school. And when the war was intensified there, the game between us, it was how many bodies do you jump before you get to school? And get it to a point where, seeing dead people was the normal piece of growing up, No, hey, guys, let's go get together and let's go play soccer outside, right? And vamos a jugar fútbol. No, it's what we can do in order to be safe because, it's attacks everywhere and you can be dead. Right now, if I can count with one hand out of those 28 friends that I have and I grew up, I can count them with one hand how many of them are alive at this moment, and we still have communication. Because many of them disappear, dead, enlisted in either the rebels or the army, and we don't know anymore anything about them, what is happening with their life. So growing up in that situation, it makes you really value what you have. And I remember my parents, always told me, education is the only thing that is going to take you out of this situation. You have to stay in school and focus in school. Because it was a lot of different distractions, being in the high school, and feeling like, you have the ideas, and people trying to push their ideas from the left or from the right, and you had to be part of our group and all this. And my parents keep saying, focus in school, focus in education. This is the only one. And luckily for us, and my dad being a smart guy he was, every once in a while he moved from city to city so he can take us from the places that he considered, there was too much negative influence in us, and moving us, to a different place where we can start all over again. And that's how I ending my years, being a teacher. I started working as a teacher. Later on, I work in the rural area. I was living in the mountains, it's when I learned Quiché to be able to teach, and to work in the environment. I was immersed into the language. And I grew up having nannies that speak, some of the language. I grew up in the part of my country, where everybody speaks that language. So it was the exposure, not knowing what bilingual education was in those years.
Wow.
And
that's true, yeah.
So, and then, the life, turned around and give me the chance, to come to the United States. I was traveling, in my younger age, trying to get some money, to pay school, coming here with some friends, get some cars, take it down to Guatemala, fix it, sell it, and have some money to pay school. Oh. And at the same time, to help my family. But after that, I graduate, I start working. I work in multiple, different places. I get out of education, work in the industry. The situation, financial, economical situation, the war, in Guatemala was not the most appropriate, nice opportunities were one opportunity in your lifetime, and it's a million people waiting for the same opportunity. So I start seeing life from a different perspective, and then I had the chance, to come to the United States. So late 1990s, I immigrate definitely to the United States. I came here with the goal and with the idea, I'm going to have 5 years. I'm going to make enough money. I'm going to go back there. I'm going to have a nice car, and then I'm going to start all over my life there, right? Well, I came here, and the first thing, that my friend that I was living in his house, he says, well, you need to go and learn English. I said, no, that's a difficult language. I tried in Guatemala, and no, I don't want to do that. And he's like, no, you live in my house, you're going to learn English. this is the only thing in this country that's gonna, give you opportunities. And I'm like, okay. So he took me to the school. He registered me at the school. He took me every single day for 2 years to take classes for 2 hours every single day.
I did not know this.
Until I learned a language. And then I learned a language, and I was fine working as a truck driver. I was working, driving a semi.
I knew you had done that. You had mentioned that. Okay.
So, and it was fun. My dad had some trucks in Guatemala. I learned how to do it. I practiced more here, and then I got my license, and I was driving, and I was single, young, making good money. Life is good, right? And I was able to help my family. After that, I met, now that is my wife, after 25 years in June.
Congratulations.
25 years, thank you. So I met her, and we decided to get married, and we started our life together, and, in between that, through church, we met this family. She was from Costa Rica. He was from Mexico. He owns trucking company. She was a teacher. So we get together for dinner, and one time, we're talking, and we're talking about trucks, because, it's what we did in those days. And she asked me, but what is your profession? Do you have profession in your country? And I said, yeah, I'm a teacher, but, and she's like, so what are you doing driving a truck? I said, oh, believe me, I try already. First, I don't speak the language. Second, taking the test to pass, to get your certification is too difficult. Unbelievable. No, I did it once, I failed, and no more. She said, no, you did it wrong. What do you mean I did it wrong? And she says, you need to go through bilingual education. I'm like, excuse me, what is that? Well, you already told me you speak 2 languages. Yeah, but I never see or know what bilingual education was. So she explained it to me. She told me, here is my car. She was the coordinator of bilingual education for the district. Invite me to her office. Monday, she showed me all the steps. I started the process. 2 months later, I have my license. I have everything, that was required for me to become a teacher. A month later, I became first grade bilingual teacher. And my career started there.
Wow. So your wife introduced you into bilingual education.
Well, because of this family. She's the one, the lady was working for the Rockford Public Schools.
Oh, okay, okay.
And she's the one that brought me into the knowledge of and what it is bilingual education, and give me the chance, to learn. And I started there. I get my first job, and I started as a bilingual teacher. I have 42 students my first year.
That is impressive.
I started that way, and then, after that, I get another offer. We move into a different city, and being in that city, I was working as a teacher again, and then, I got an offer in Wisconsin because we were living in the border. So I got an offer in one of the districts in Wisconsin, Lake Geneva, and I went there, as the bilingual kindergarten teacher. They hire me, everything is fine. Okay, I'm gonna start as a kindergarten. I was kindergarten before, so I love to do that. That's a fun age, it's probably the best time that I have as a teacher. And it was bilingual, so fine. So I get to the district. Week before we started school, they told me, no, we had not enough kids, so we're not gonna have a kindergarten. And I'm like, what? So now I had no job, and I left my other job. And they said, no, we need an ESL teacher from one of our elementary that has the most amount of Latinos in the classrooms. Mm-hmm. So we want you to be the ESL teacher. I'm like, what is ESL? And they said, well, you're going to be teaching English as a second language. My English is not native. Yeah, but you had not enough. By that time, I speak more and more English. My wife was a beacon, in my life for that, because she was pushing me, her family, about learning English and practice their language and all that. So we decided at home we were speaking only English because she wants me to improve, reading with me, give me comments and reading books and things like that, watching movies, in English so I can improve my language. So I said, okay, so I accepted the job, and I started there as an ESL teacher. When I was there, they told me, oh, well, by the way, because it's Wisconsin, you need to have some classes in order to get your license. And I'm like, okay, so where I take the classes? Oh, there's a few universities here that you can go and take the classes. Okay, so I start talking to my wife, and she said, well, you're going to do this. Why you don't just take more classes and get your master's degree? Okay, well, I'm not 20 anymore, but I guess I can do it. So, okay, so we start. And I ending, registered myself in University of Wisconsin, Whitewater, with a program in between the Whitewater and Madison.
Okay.
And I started there my master's degree, and 3 years later, I graduated with a master's degree in curriculum instruction, bilingual education, and school leadership.
Wow.
And right after I graduated, 2004, I get my first position as an administrator, as assistant principal in one of the biggest dual language schools in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
That is so impressive.
Yeah, I started there. And then, from there, it's a history, because I started as an assistant principal, then I moved to a principal, then I went to a different district for another dual language school, as a principal. And because at that moment, and because I went to school to learn what bilingual education was, my passion started coming back, because I had the passion for learning languages back in my country. And then, I started getting, okay, I speak now some English, I speak Spanish, I speak, Quiché. Now I can go into this. And I started there, and I get immersed, and I start working, with districts, administrators, teachers. I start learning, going to conference, reading books, articles, and all, until I became, a director of language acquisition programs for districts, district-wide. And then from there, it's, like I said, it's history, because I moved into many different districts. I started doing conference training, training for principals, training for teachers, because now I'm in the field. And years passed by, and I started getting more and more knowledge and experience that it helped me, to get to this point.
Yeah.
And then I ended accepting, an offer for international schools. And I ended in Kuwait.
In Kuwait, that's right. I knew you had mentioned that you had lived in Kuwait.
So I was there for 3 years in a bilingual Arabic-English school. And it was a really neat experience, because, it really opened my eye how bilingual education is seen, through the world. One of the experiences that I remember the most is, I was having a staff meeting, and I'm talking to the teachers. And my first year, I opened the school from pre-K to 5th grade. Second year, I opened middle school. And the third year, I opened high school. So I learned how to be an international teacher for 4K to high school principal. And then, I was in this staff meeting, and we were talking, and I had teachers from all over the world. And we were just discussing, things from the school. And suddenly, the question came about bilingual education. And they have a different idea, how bilingual education should work. So we start, talking about it and giving some strategies. And suddenly everybody started saying, well, I speak 3 languages, I speak 5 languages, I speak 6 languages. The majority of my teachers, the majority, they have either, master degree or doctorate degree, they speak 5 languages and up.
Yeah.
And then they ask me, and I'm like, I only speak 3.
I only speak 2. So
yeah, I feel like, wow, this is the world, the world out there. What they consider in learning language and culture is part of the daily life.
Right.
And it's because, they are meeting so many people from so many different places that interaction. And they told me it's not just about the language. It's about the cultural piece that it make you really be in the shoes of somebody else. And that's with me, coming back into the U.S., to say bilingual education had to have that shift where we, and many times, I come to conference like WI, where I sitting and I feel like, guys, we're preaching to the choir because we know exactly what we have to do.
Yes.
We need to take this word out to people that are not, into this.
Yep.
That they can see, exactly what it needs to be done in order for us, to really give the kids what they need so they can become successful.
1,000%. That's a lot to unpack and to consider from everything. One thing I want to say though is like what's really fun, and to any of the listeners, like what's really fun about this is that you come at this from a very, obviously, as you explained, specific and unique background, and you and I have been able to talk and get to know each other, and the listeners also know that my background was coming from someone who wasn't supposed to be bilingual, that had a really amazing teacher, and so the journey and the experiences that you had are very different from the ones I've had. But because I was able to participate in that, I get to meet amazing people like you, and you get to meet other amazing people here within the field. But to your point, just about how in other countries, often you can be speaking 3, 4, 5 different languages, and that's very much the norm. And that's very much how their educational system is set up, is because they're in an area or they're in a situation where it's going to be a benefit for them to have multiple languages. Here, that's not always the case, but I believe that it is so important to have that be a through line for all of our education, because that's what helps other people that would have otherwise not had been exposed to any of this, to help me grow as a person, to help me open up my mind, and to help me go and explore the cultures and the lives of other people, to hopefully in turn make me better at what I do so I can help serve students better. But it's so fun though that like sometimes whenever we discuss like in the dual language program, you'll have the red, for example, in Spanish and blue in English, but yet I'm the red one and you're the blue one, and so we cross back and forth, just because.
I guess it's that situation.
It's interesante, ¿verdad?
Yeah,
Porque a lo mejor como yo sigo
interesante.
contigo en español and you're like, well, let me answer you in English. I'm like, well, wait a minute, how is that? Like,
I think the point of this is that. And well, thank you, for what you say, your kind words, about me. But it's reciprocal, you're amazing, and I'm here because of you. I'm in Oklahoma and Western High because what you were doing, the work that you started there, and I'm just continuing what you just opened the door there for me to walk in, and continue doing the work, that it was already placed in there. The seed was put in there. Now it's my job to take care of that, to let it grow into the tree that it's supposed to be.
I'm really thankful, and I don't even want to get emotional. I'm just really passionate about the work that we do. In the field of in the field of education, period. But I'm glad that I had that opportunity to start to have conversations and work with leadership to be able to have the larger conversation. But I also know that like in the field of bilingual education, I come at it from a limited point of view when it comes to the understanding of maybe some of the other experiences that a language learner coming from a diverse background of a family here within the United States or beyond the borders from a different country coming here. And you in the beginning had explained some of the things that you had to experience, like walking over dead bodies and how that became a norm of a game, but all the way up to where you are today and how all of your experiences have now put you into leadership positions as an assistant principal, doing professional development here at Owabe, taking on a role on the board, but also now being in charge yet again of dual language programs in a district. You bring something special to it, and I'm glad I get to be a part of it, and I'm so thankful I get to share this with you.
I know.
But you bring something that I can't bring, and that's very, very important for other leaders to sit and listen to these stories and to understand that it's not just about those gains that we're making on the academics or the gains that we're making in language acquisition. It's that cultural piece that is going to help connect, all of that. And you having been in that, currently and in the leadership roles, what is that? How does that impact you now from a different way from what you see of other types of leadership that may not have those experiences, and how that impacts kids?
I was just a few weeks ago, I was invited, to be the main speaker for the Guatemalans Association, the Guatemalans in Guatemala and Oklahoma Association.
Yes.
So all the people that live here, from Guatemala, they start getting together and start forming this association, in order to embrace what many Guatemalans, it's people here that it came, in 1950, 1960s.
Yes, a long time ago.
Yeah, and they're entrepreneurs now, and they have, their own business, and they have, other things. And when I was doing my speech at there, I mentioned, that a lot of these people are the heroes that we don't read in a comic book. We don't see a movie from them.
Yeah.
But they are the ones, that set it up, the stage, for the young generations, and how become, and make the change in our society. And one of the things, that I was mentioning to them is, and I think, this is the important piece, is how I see the leadership, in other areas, not just for bilingual education. But I think, my friend told me, learning the English is the only thing, it's going to help you to get better opportunities. But through the years, I think, he was, for the majority, right, but he misses one point. That also you need to meet the right people to have those connections. They help you, to open those doors for you to do this. And that's what I was telling, this in this gala dinner, that we have. The people that come here, they had to have the right connections in order, to get in a position where they can do hard work and show and be a role model, for others that are coming behind. Because I could have stayed in Chicago area.
Yeah.
But something was telling me, to come this way, and I came to Tulsa, and then I ended here, Oklahoma City. And in between the period of time, in between Tulsa and coming to Oklahoma City and meeting you, and talking over the phone and have all those conversations, and never had the chance, to really see you in person. But hey, I know Kelly, right? And we're gonna talk and we're gonna discuss all the things. But having that opportunity, it becomes, the link for me to be in this situation. Now I feel like, okay, now's my chance for me to help others, to come and be in the same situation that I was and have the opportunity, to develop. Leadership is not just about, to show people how to do stuff. Leadership is to work with them, And one thing that I learned through my years is, you need to really sell the idea to people to the point that they believe it's their idea and they work for it, and then they're going to do it with more passion because that's
ownership, right?
Yeah, they own it. So that's the point, where, and it's different style of leadership, definitely. It's multiple different ways that you can do it. But I think, having my experience, being in situations where I was discriminated because I didn't speak English, and they told me, go back to your country, you don't even speak my language. Things like that, to now feel like, wait a minute, I speak 3 languages,
It's amazing.
I went to school in my second language.
Es un superpoder. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And so those things are, I think, are the ones that you have to take it, to give it to others, to show them. And I always told when I'm in school, I always told the kids, look, if I was able to make it, and I came here, not as younger as you are, you can do it much better. Definitely. You can do it much better. You speak in the language with no accent. I still have accent. And sometimes, people look at me because of my accent, which for me is like, I consider something that is fun, right?
Yeah,
to have
no.
the accent. So
Definitely.
something sexy to have the accent, right? So
Sign of awesomeness.
So it's part of your personality. It's part of your identity.
Yeah.
But then, I told the kids, look, you have all this world of opportunities in this country. You came here and they opened their arms to receive you here and to give you all these opportunities that are for anybody that wants to take it. But how much work do you want to put in order to take that opportunity? This is the land of opportunities. Many parents, I told them.
But at the same time, though, I'm going to have to say that, I think we as educators on our side, we as educators on our side have to also take the same opportunity to make sure that we are learning about the people that are around us as well, and not being resistant to that.
Correct.
Because there is going to get to that point, though, that if I keep having you just do everything this way because this is the way we just do it, I don't have any input from you, well, then that means you're not as valued.
Sure.
And that's not going to necessarily help with that effective filter, with your sense of belonging, with anything of you wanting to be able to participate. And so I think that it is a two-way street. I think that if you're here in a situation where you get to receive an education, regardless of where you're from, you have a responsibility to take advantage of that. Like 100%, because some people don't have a free public education. But at the same time, though, if I am choosing to work in a multicultural environment, then I need to be a multicultural individual to the best of my ability at the same time.
You are right, and it's two ways. And it's a movie called Walk on the Clouds.
Okay.
Or something like that, Yeah, Caminando en las Nubes.
Okay.
And it's a part, when this gentleman who is, an immigrant is talking, to a soldier, that is talking about his daughter, the farmer, the immigrant. And he says something, that stuck with me for years, that he says, and don't think it just because I speak with an accent, I think with an accent.
Ooh.
So
good.
So it made me think, to a point where people comes in different shapes and different ideologies and different ways, to live life. But I think no matter where you're from as an educator, you choose to be an educator for a reason. And the reason was to be an influence in the life of somebody that can change the world. Right?
Yeah.
Even if it's only one.
Yes.
That was the whole reason why
That's why we do what we do.
Exactly.
I mean, 99% of the educators out there
Exactly.
have a heart that is so big and a passion for kids.
Why to be so close mind, thinking, that education is, changing and it's revolving now around a global community. Okay, this is the way that I was teaching, 20 years ago. Yeah, sure, but now we don't have the population that we had 20 years ago. So we need to change and we need to adapt. As a human, we learn how to adapt. I was living in Wisconsin with temperatures, 40 below. And then I went to Kuwait with temperatures, 126. You are able to adapt.
You have to adapt.
Yes.
I was in Bangkok, Thailand, and it's hot and hotter. Those are the two climates.
Exactly.
Hot
and hotter.
And you get used to it.
Exactly.
You do adapt. Yeah.
So as an educators, I think, we have to be open-minded and really find the purpose why we became an educator. And the idea was, that I can be the tools to influence, to change, to make a difference in somebody else's life. That person probably is the one that is going to change the world. I'm not.
Yeah.
But that person will be. So from that perspective, when we are in our classroom, we're multilingual learners. We need to understand, and that's the beauty of dual language education, that we need to understand, the three pillars of dual language. That we need to understand that is the part, and I put it reverse, the cultural piece, this,
Yes.
cross-cultural
And for the listeners,
environment.
the three pillars are bilingualism, biliteracy, academic achievement on grade level or higher, and then that third, which was why you're starting with the third one. I think it's the most important one, is the sociocultural competence.
Yeah. So when we reverse those and start from that perspective to understand, I'm in a classroom and I don't know this kid coming from, war. This other kid just coming from, abusive house. This kid is, I don't know their backgrounds. But how am I going to create the environment in my classroom where they feel like they belong? And they don't want to stay home because they want to be in the classroom because they feel safe and because they know that they're going to learn something there that is going to change their life. No matter their background, but then be open to that cross-cultural environment that if this person said it this way because that's the way, you know, that they are saying in their culture, welcome. That's really good. Let's go learn about it.
Yes.
And then you go to the second part. And the second part will be your job is to make these kids to become, not to lose what they already bring to the classroom.
Right.
It's to enhance and to make them, you know, being bilingual and biliterate. And then the academic achievement is going to come in place. Because if you have those two first, the third one comes as an addition. Mm-hmm. Because if the kid is motivated, they're going to do their work, and they're going to do it really well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different mentality for students that are coming. For example, when I was a newcomer teacher, the motivation, the intrinsic motivation that the students had to be in school and my motivation as well, it was just very different from a student that is born here and just automatically has access to it. And so even as the educator, I could see the difference in how the students were trying to achieve certain goals that they had, and then also other people that would kind of just be lazy and not necessarily try because, you know, it was just, I already had this, it's nothing really special. But for people to have to really uproot, change their entire lives, come to a brand new culture, and then seeing them want to achieve dreams so badly, coming from backgrounds that I didn't even necessarily understand as a brand new teacher, I just really found it to be important to take the time as much as possible to learn from my students, not just about who they are, but from where they come and why that was important to incorporate all of that. Because again, it's that sense of belonging. And so the students that I had the privilege and honor of learning with and teaching were refugee students or students that came on their own. And there was and everything in between. You've had similar experiences that have been, as you described before, some great and some not so great. But I just really felt like it was an important responsibility on my part as an educator to help create that sense of belonging more than anything, because it would help them meet those goals and create an area where they could succeed.
And you are completely right with that one, and you know, and then it's and I think, you know, that's the part of a good leader, to transfer, you know, that what you were just saying that we are doing there for our students to the staff.
Yeah.
And have, you know, we had teachers that they never leave, you know, the place that they were born, raised, you know, and probably they're going to die there, right?
I've met people who have never left the state.
But they had the chance to be with other people that had all this kind of experiences that they can embrace this new environment where we're working, because, you know, it's no longer, even though we still have borders, but it's no longer, you know, just our society. Now we're living in a global society.
Right here in Oklahoma only.
I can right now get into the online, you know, and talk to my family, you know, in Guatemala, and then at the same time, you know, I can connect with my friends in Kuwait, you know, in other parts of the world. So we live in that global society where we learn from everybody.
100%.
And I think, you know, that's the part of a leader, to guide and to pass that feelings, you know, to the people that we work with. You know, that they had to understand that living in that global society is an advantage for our students, but also it's an advantage for us.
1,000%. I always recommend people to travel if you can, just because I feel like there's something really special going somewhere, even if it's not for language, just to go and experience life somewhere else. But you don't have to travel necessarily to experience culture. You can do it literally in your backyard, no matter where you are. Because there's so much diversity within cultures, period. But specifically to Oklahoma, where we are in Oklahoma City, there are just multiple languages and backgrounds and just so much diversity overall. So I encourage anybody who's listening to make sure that you go into your own community. You know, you don't have to buy a plane ticket and spend $1,000 and go somewhere. But at the same time, if you can, take that opportunity and don't go to the all-inclusive resort. Go to a real part of the town, but then bring that back, because I think it's very important to just remember that we are global citizens. We all live on this planet, and the more that we learn about and from one another, the better that we are, which is why we believe bringing in teachers from different backgrounds in the field of dual language education specifically really helps with that third pillar of sociocultural competence.
Definitely, and you know, I live in a small town in Wisconsin where we have one store that you can find some Latino products, right? And here in Oklahoma City, you know.
Por todos lados. Yo fui esta mañana al supermercado Morelos.
Sí,
Tengo que
sí.
San Pandora. Say, you can go anywhere you need.
A cualquier lado.
A cualquier lado.
Y comprar lo que yo quiera, porque
Yes.
lo tienen ahí.
And they have great Vietnamese supermarkets I've been to. They're just, you can go anywhere. There's just so much. There's so much.
It is. And I think, you know, as an educator, I feel like you need to really enjoy those moments, those experiences, because those are the ones that are going to make your experience in the classroom completely different and more successful, because now you start understanding,
Yes.
you know, why for many of us that are here, you know, we don't take it for granted, you know, the things that are happening here, because, you know, even just to have a warm, clean shower in the morning, right? I don't take it for granted because I can do it here. I just open the faucet and, you know, the water is there.
We don't even think about it, do we?
Exactly. But other people, they don't have that chance. So having it here, I think, you know, enjoying, embracing, and sharing those things are the ones that are going to change it. And you said it, dual language education really is making the difference in our educational system to put things in place, you know, that are helping not just students, but also teachers, families, parents, communities, you know, administrators, everybody to understand why we are really in this field.
Yeah.
Why is it that we do this? You know?
And I think whenever we get out more into the communities, I know I had mentioned food, but I think it's because I'm a little hungry. But apart from even the food aspect, just like real celebrations. I mean, even if we don't speak the same language, I can still sit at the table and eat with you. Even though I may not participate in that certain religion, I can still go and learn about that religious experience that you're having. And all of that just informs me more about the greater community at large as a global citizen. And through that, I would also encourage people to go volunteer. Places that are outside of what you know to be your own local community, because through those processes, I've even met in volunteering, I was interpreting, but helping a parent who was from Guatemala for interpretation, and come to find out through our conversation, because we were able to, one, we took the time, but two, I was able to have that conversation, was a professional educator in Guatemala, which changed, therefore, the entire conversation with that teacher. Now it wasn't teacher to mom, it was teacher to teacher that is a mom also. And so it was just, there's just so much power the more that we expose ourselves to these experiences.
I think, you know, the world that we're living in, talking about bilingualism, is a world, you know, that is for everybody, you know. I have somebody, you know, in my office yesterday, we were talking, you know, about the books donation that I mentioned to you, you know, and we were discussing, you know, about this situation and everything. And then, you know, we were saying, oh, but why exactly is it the way you want to do with these books? It was part of the question, because they want to justify it, right? And I said, well, we have this. And the point is, our kids need to read, and the only way to read is to have a book in their hands, right? I don't want them in the tablet. Yeah, of course, that's a great tool, but I want them to be able to pick up a book and read for pleasure.
Yeah.
And read because, you know, they want to read, not because it's imposed. So then later on, you know, I have another meeting and I had somebody else there. And one of the things, you know, she was reading my board, you know, the writing that I have on the board, and she says, oh, I like the way, you know, that you call it unilinguals instead of monolinguals. And I said, because that's the thing, you know, we need to be respectful, but at the same time, we need to embrace what they have.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what our identity is. And we can no longer, you know, work in thinking that we're going to take the identity away from somebody, especially from a kid. We need to embrace what they bring to make it better. Because in the long run, our great nation, it was built by immigrants.
Totalmente.
And the melting pot is here, you know, and it doesn't make it any less than what it is. Actually, you know, I'm proud to call myself an American, and it took me to travel all the way across the globe for they to call me an American.
That is so interesting.
in Kuwait, you know.
And
to
you've
say,
always been
yeah,
from the Americas.
and say, you know, oh, you're an American. I'm like, yes, I am.
It's just so
You know,
important
proud.
to really, you know, let that sink in for a minute, what that meant. And then again, you know, just great Native American culture that we have here, indigenous cultures as well, and keeping all of that relevant in our mind. I want to do another podcast episode with you. This is so much to talk about. But what are any final words that you might have that you want to share? Anything that takeaways from the conference as we're celebrating Awabe? Anything to your presentation? What do you want to tell anyone that might be out there listening who just says, "Hey"?
I just feel like, you know, being in this conference, it has been a blessing. I feel like a little bit overwhelmed knowing all the work that is coming up for me in the next
I'm
3
really glad
years.
that I'm getting off and he's going to be getting right on. That's perfect.
It's going to be a lot of work, but I think, you know,
It's good work.
it just when Dr. Colbert announced it, you know, and then we have a new president. I'm like, what? For a moment, you know, humble myself, you know, to think his words from the point that this is an opportunity for me to work with many different people and to work, you know, to make this a better way for people to understand that bilingual education is important, not just because, you know, we had to teach it, because we had the kids, you know, they don't speak English yet. It's because we're embracing them and their identity to become, you know, what they really want to be, and allow them, you know, to use their language, their cultural experience, their traditions. It just make our nation better. So I know it's going to be a lot of work. I know it's going to be ways, you know, that I'm going to be a lot of more important people, you know, a lot of more, because, you know, I've been meeting a lot, you know, here in Oklahoma. But, you know, I can tell you that right now my feelings are, you know, that I will be, after 3 years, standing up there, you know, seeing the new president coming in place, and I want to have the feeling that I did something that make a difference in somebody, because that person probably is the one that is going to go and change the world. So
I know that people have impacted me through this process and these conferences, and it is exciting to be off just because it's a lot, and but like I said, not so much because of leaving, but just be able to see new people come in with new points of view and experiences. And so I'm excited for your journey, and I am a little sad for mine to be ending in this way, but it's great.
Don't worry, I'm going to be calling you.
You're the new president-elect. We'll have Savannah Payne as the president, and then Dr. Culver as past president, and it's going to be fun to get to have this experience with you. We'll do this again next year at the conference, and the year after that. So we'll have to come back and compare notes in 3 years and see how it's been.
Por supuesto.
Well, hey,
aquí estamos.
Ron Sandoval, muchas gracias por todo. Gracias por todo lo que hace en nuestro campo de educación. And felicidades as the new president-elect for the Oklahoma Association for Bilingual Education.
Un placer.
Appreciate you.
Un placer.
All right. Adiós.